The rain hammered down like fists on the windshield of the Greyhound bus as it shuddered to a stop in downtown Chicago, and I bolted out into the storm without a backward glance. My backpack soaked through in seconds, heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. My phone buzzed once. Mom's number. The one I'd blocked 100 times but couldn't bring myself to delete. And I smashed the power button, whispering a curse under my breath as thunder cracked overhead, drowning out the lie I'd been telling myself for years. This time, it's really over. I didn't know where Hunter lived exactly, just the vague address he'd texted me months ago during one of our late-night gaming sessions. But as I stumbled through the flooded streets of Wicker Park, neon signs blurring into watery ghosts, I clung to the one truth that had kept me alive. My best friend's older brother was the kind of guy who never turned anyone away. I pounded on the door of the old brick walk-up until my knuckles ached, the wind whipping my hoodie over my head like a shroud. And when it finally creaked open, there he was, Jonathan, all broad shoulders and that easy half-smile that made you feel like the world wasn't ending after all. Eli? Jesus, kid, you look like you swam here. Get inside before you drown. His voice was gravelly from years of Chicago winters and too many smokes on fire escapes, but it wrapped around me like a blanket as he yanked me into the dim hallway, the door slamming shut behind us with a finality that echoed in my bones. Water pooled at my feet on the scuffed hardwood, and I stood there shivering, not just from the cold, realizing in that split second that showing up unannounced at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday might have been the dumbest or bravest thing I'd ever done. The apartment smelled like fresh coffee and old books, a far cry from the stale beer and regret back home in that peeling suburb outside Indianapolis. Jonathan flicked on a lamp, casting warm shadows over the cluttered living room. Stacks of vinyl records by the turntable, a worn leather couch that had seen better days, and posters of Springsteen concerts peeling at the edges like memories that wouldn't quite fade. He was Hunter's big brother by 6 years, the one who'd stuck around after their folks split, working construction gigs by day and bartending at some dive on Division Street by night to keep the lights on. I'd met him a handful of times at Hunter's family barbecues back in high school. Always the guy cracking dad jokes that weren't funny but made everyone laugh anyway. The one who'd slip me an extra burger when Hunter wasn't looking because he could tell I was too skinny, too quiet, too much like the stray dog I felt like half the time. Here, he said, tossing me a towel from the bathroom. His flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and a faded tattoo of a compass rose that I'd always wondered about. Dry off. Hunter's out in LA for that internship, remember? Won't be back till summer. But you. Shit, Eli, what's going on? You drive all night or what? I nodded, mumbling something about a fight with my folks, the bus, needing a place to crash just till I figured things out. Lies by omission, because how do you explain the bruises under your sleeves, the way your dad's voice could shatter glass with one wrong word, or the nights you'd locked yourself in the bathroom praying the water would drown out the shouting? Jonathan didn't push, just brewed 2 mugs of that strong diner coffee and handed me one, steam curling up like secrets between us. Couch is yours as long as you need it, he said, settling into the armchair across from me. His green eyes steady in a way that made my throat tighten. No questions, no rent. Just, don't make me regret it. All right? That first night, I barely slept, the city's hum seeping through the fire escape like a lullaby I didn't trust. The couch sagged under me, but it was soft, safe, worlds away from the lumpy mattress back home where every creak meant footsteps in the hall. Jonathan crashed in his room down the short hallway, door cracked just enough for a sliver of streetlight to spill out, and I lay there staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, replaying the bus ride. The way my hands shook as I deleted Hunter's last text asking if I was okay. The passenger next to me who noticed and didn't say a word, just offered a candy bar like that could fix a fractured life. By dawn, the rain had eased to a drizzle, and I wandered into the kitchen to find Jonathan already up, frying eggs in a cast-iron skillet, humming some Dylan tune off-key. Morning sunshine, he grinned, sliding a plate my way. Eat. You look like you could use some meat on those bones. We fell into a rhythm like that, unspoken and easy, the kind of domesticity I'd only seen in movies. Ones where nobody ends up alone. I'd crash late after job hunting on my laptop. Barista gigs? Warehouse stalker? Anything that paid under the table. And he'd leave a note on the fridge. Milk's in the door. Don't touch the last Pop-Tart. Mornings were for coffee and bullshit stories. His about the time he botched a tattoo on a biker who turned out to be a cop. Mine about Hunter and me sneaking into the drive-in to watch bootleg horrors. He never asked about the faded scar on my knuckle from punching a wall after Dad's last bender, or why I flinched at loud voices on TV. Instead, he'd crank the radio to WBZ, that public station with its mix of blues and book reviews, and we'd talk about everything and nothing. The Cubs' endless curse, Obama's old speeches still echoing in speeches, the way Lake Michigan could look like an ocean on clear days. One evening, after a shift slinging lattes at a hipster spot in Logan Square where the tips were shit but the Wi-Fi was free, I came home to find him on the couch, nursing a beer and staring at a photo album spread across his lap. The light from the window caught the silver threading his temples. 32 going on timeless, and for the first time, I noticed the lines around his eyes, the ones that spoke of regrets heavier than mine. Hunter when he was a kid, he said without looking up, tapping a picture of a gap-toothed boy in oversized overalls, arms slung around a lanky teen version of himself. Used to drag me to every White Sox game. Promised I'd take him to Yankee Stadium someday. His voice cracked just a hair, and I sat beside him, close enough to smell the sawdust on his shirt from the sight. You will, I said, because what else do you say to a man who's given you shelter without strings? He closed the album, his knee brushing mine, and in that accidental touch, something shifted, like the air before a storm, charged and inevitable. Weeks blurred into a month, the city unfolding around us like a battered love letter. Jonathan showed me his world. The hidden speakeasy under the L tracks where jazz spilled out like smoke. The pier at Montrose where we'd skip stones at dusk and watch freighters crawl the horizon. He'd talk about his ex, a graphic designer named Marco who'd bailed 2 years back for a job in New York, leaving behind sticky notes on the fridge that said love you in looping script. Wasn't about the gay thing, Jonathan muttered once. Over takeout Thai on the fire escape, the skyline twinkling like it gave a damn. More like I was too steady, too Midwest. He wanted fireworks. I was the guy fixing the fuse. I nodded, picking at my pad CW, my own secrets coiling tighter in my gut. The hookups in high school bathrooms that meant nothing but everything. The way I'd kiss boys in the dark and wake up hating the mirror. But with Jonathan, it wasn't like that. It was the way he'd linger after handing me the remote. His fingers grazing mine, or how he'd catch me watching him chop onions. That half smile saying he knew but wouldn't push. One night, after a double shift that left me smelling like burnt espresso and defeat, I found him strumming an old acoustic on the couch, the melody low and mournful, like a prayer for rain. Come here, he said, patting the cushion, and I did, curling up with my head on his thigh, the guitar vibrating through us both. His free hand rested on my shoulder, thumb tracing lazy circles, and I closed my eyes, letting the notes wash over the ache I'd carried so long it felt like home. You're safe here, Eli, he whispered when the song faded, his voice rough as the L train. Whatever chased you out that door, it's not getting in. I wanted to believe him, God. I did, but safety was a fragile thing, and I could feel the cracks forming already. Fall crept in with its crisp bite, turning the leaves on Damon Avenue to fire, and with it came the first real fracture. Not a break, but a hairline stress that widened with every shared glance. Hunter texted me out of the blue one afternoon while I was restocking syrups at the cafe. Dude, how's Chi-Town? Mom says you're crashing at John's? Bill. I stared at the screen, thumbs hovering, crafting a reply that danced around the truth. Yeah, he's cool. Job hunting. Miss gaming with you. No mention of the way Jonathan's laugh lit up the room like dawn over the lake, or how I'd started leaving my door open at night, hoping for an excuse to wander down the hall. Jonathan noticed, of course. He had a way of reading silences like they were subtitles. That weekend, he dragged me to a harvest festival in Humboldt Park. The air thick with tamales and mariachi horns. Kids chasing balloons under strings of papal picado. We wandered the booths, him haggling for a wool serape that smelled like sheep and earth. Me snapping pics on my phone, the kind I'd never post, just hoard like talismans. You ever think about staying? he asked as we leaned against a chain-link fence, munching elotes slathered in mayo and cotija, the sun dipping low and gilding everything gold. Staying. The word hung there, heavy as the humidity clinging to our skin. For what? I shot back, too quick, too sharp, and his face shuddered, that easy openness folding away like a hand closing on a flame. I mean it, Eli. Chicago's got its teeth, but it's home if you let it be. He bumped my shoulder with his, playful but probing, and I laughed it off, changing the subject to the punk band setting up on the stage, their amps buzzing like angry bees. But that night, back in the apartment with the serape draped over the couch like a promise, I couldn't sleep. The city sounds filtered in, sirens wailing distant grief, a neighbor's TV murmuring infomercial lies, and I padded to the kitchen for water, only to find him there, silhouetted against the fridge's glow, a beer in hand. "Can't sleep either?" he asked, and I shook my head, leaning on the counter as he cracked open a second bottle, sliding it my way. We talked till the sky lightened, about dreams deferred. His to open a record shop, mine to study graphic design without the shadow of debt hanging like a noose. It was in those stolen hours that the pull sharpened, turning from gratitude to something rawer, more reckless. I'd catch myself tracing the line of his jaw when he dozed during afternoon games. Black Ops on the Xbox, him cursing at noobs while I sniped from the shadows, or lingering too long in the bathroom after showers, the steam carrying his cedar soap sent like an invitation. He felt it too. I knew by the way his touches lingered, a hand on my lower back guiding me through crowds at the Blue Line station, or how he'd ruffle my hair and let his fingers trail down my neck, both of us pretending it was brotherly. Hunter's brother. The line blurred, smudged by late-night confessions over whiskey neat. His first crush on the high school quarterback, fumbling kisses behind the bleachers. My own tangled mess with a foster kid named Riley who'd ghosted after one summer, leaving me hollow as a gutted fish. Then came the call that cracked it wide open. It was a Thursday, gray skies spitting sleet, and I was elbow-deep in spreadsheets for a freelance logo gig when my phone lit up with an Indiana area code. Unknown, but I knew. Dad's voice boomed through before I could hang up. "Eli, you little shit. Your mother's a wreck. Get your ass home, or I'll drag you." Threats laced with that false concern, the kind that masked the fists waiting in the wings. I hung up trembling, the apartment spinning, and when Jonathan walked in from the site, boots caked in mud, flannel damp, I lost it. Words tumbled out in a rush. The beatings disguised as discipline. The slurs hurled like grenades when he found my browser history. Mom's tears that never stopped the cycle. He listened without interrupting, face hardening like concrete setting. And when I finished, he pulled me into a hug that crushed the air from my lungs, his chin resting on my head. "You're not going back," he growled, fierce as the wind rattling the windows. "Not ever." In the days that followed, that vow became our anchor. He helped me file a no-contact order online, his lawyer buddy from the bar drafting it pro bono, and we celebrated with deep dish at Lou Malnati's, cheese pulling like strings of fate. But safety bred vulnerability, and vulnerability invited the storm. One night, buzzed on cheap Merlot and the high of a Cubs win, we kissed. Slow at first, tentative, his lips tasting of salt and possibility, then deeper, hands mapping uncharted territory over clothes that stayed firmly on. It wasn't fire. It was hearth, warm and steady, pulling me from the cold I'd known too long. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, and he whispered, "This okay?" I nodded, heart slamming. But in the morning light, doubt crept in like fog off the lake. Hunter called again. This time video, his face sun-kissed from LA beaches, grin wide as the Pacific. "Bro, you and John? Spill the tea." I froze, the laptop balanced on my knees while Jonathan showered, oblivious in the next room. How to explain the man who'd become my harbor without sounding like a fool? "He's family." I hedged, but Hunter's eyes narrowed, that twin intuition kicking in. "Yeah? Or more?" "Look, Eli, John's solid, but he's got baggage. That ex, Marco didn't just leave, he gutted him, made him promise no more risks." The words landed like punches, and I ended the call with a lame excuse, stomach churning. "Baggage. Risks. Was I just the latest stray? A placeholder till something shinier came along? The doubt festered, quiet at first, then gnawing. I'd watch Jonathan at work, sketching album covers on napkins, his focus intense and beautiful, and wonder if I measured up. If the kid from the sticks with scars could hold a candle to the city lights in his eyes. He sensed the shift, pulling back just enough to give me space, our evenings filling with neutral ground. Walks along the 606 trail, where rusted rails wound through community gardens heavy with late-blooming asters. "Talk to me," he'd say, stopping to face me under a canopy of buckeye trees, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle bones. I'd shrug, mumbling about freelance stress, but the lie tasted bitter as unpicked scabs. Winter loomed, the first real snow dusting the fire escape like powdered sugar on a wound, and with it came the betrayal I never saw coming. It started with a letter. Yellowed envelope in the mailbox, postmarked New York, Marco's handwriting looping elegant as a noose. Jonathan pocketed it without a word, but I glimpsed the return address, the intimacy of it twisting like a knife. That night he was distant, cooking pasta with mechanical precision, sauce simmering too long and scorching the pot. "Old news," he said when I asked, waving it off, but his eyes dodged mine, green turning murky as the Chicago River in thaw. I confronted him after dinner, the dishes stacked like accusations in the sink. "If it's nothing, why hide it?" My voice cracked, younger than I felt, and he sighed, rubbing his neck, the tattoo flexing like a warning. "Because it's done, Eli. Marco's married now. Some graphic novelist in Brooklyn. Sent a wedding invite like we're old pals." The words hung, casual cruelty in their wake, but it was the postscript that gutted me. P.S. Still think about that summer in the Keys. Wish you'd come. Summers. Keys. A life before me, vivid and unscarred, that I'd never touch. Jealousy bloomed hot and ugly, mingling with the fear I'd always carried. That I was temporary, a couch-surfing ghost haunting someone else's story. "So what, you gonna fly out? Rekindle the fireworks?" The sarcasm dripped, venom I didn't know I had, and his face darkened, jaw clenching. "What the hell, Eli? It's a polite no, tossed in the trash where it belongs. But if you're gonna twist it." He trailed off, hurt flashing raw, and stormed to his room, door shutting with a click that echoed louder than any slam. I spent the night on the fire escape, snowflakes melting on my cheeks, the city below a glittering lie. Betrayal wasn't the letter. It was the fracture I'd let doubt carve between us, the way I'd armored up against the one man who'd ever offered me a shield. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, and when I slipped back inside, shivering and spent, Jonathan was in the kitchen, coffee brewing like an olive branch. "We gotta talk," he said, voice steady but eyes pleading, and I nodded, sinking into the chair, bracing for the end. The conversation stretched like taffy, pulling at every raw nerve until we were both stripped bare, words spilling in fits and starts over cooling mugs. Jonathan went first, laying out the Marco years. The whirlwind romance in art school, late nights in lofts sketching nudes, weekends escaping to Florida where the sun burned away doubts. He was chaos, Eli, brilliant, broken, the kind that makes you feel alive till it chews you up. The invite, a ghost's whim, Marco's way of proving he'd moved on, armored in domestic bliss. Jonathan tossed it in the recycling that morning, the rip of paper final as a vow, but not before it dredged up the old fears of being too ordinary, too anchored, for someone who chased horizons. My turn came haltingly, the words sticking like burrs. I told him about Riley, the summer boy with freckles like constellations and a laugh that masked the foster system's bite. Kisses stolen in cornfields, promises whispered under star-pricked skies, then silence when he aged out and vanished into the ether. Left me thinking love's just a bruise you wait to fade, I admitted, tracing the mug's rim, steam long gone. And Dad. The rages fueled by layoffs and Bud Light. Mom's enabling silence a second betrayal. The coming out that wasn't. Just a slammed door and a bus ticket bought in secret. Jonathan listened, hand covering mine across the table. His grip the only steady thing in the spin. "You're not a bruise, Eli. You're the goddamn sunrise. We rebuilt from there, tentative as new snow, layering trust like insulation against the cold. Dates, real ones. A matinee at the Music Box Theater, where the organs accompanied some 80s rom-com that had us snickering through the schmaltz. His arms slung casual over my seat back. Winter markets at Maggie Daly Park, where we'd haggle for handmade scarves. His a chunky knit in navy, mine a slouchy gray that he tied himself, fingers lingering at my throat. Sex stayed off the table, not from prudery but reverence. It was enough to wake tangled in sheets. His breath warm on my neck, the world outside howling but irrelevant. Hunter flew in for Christmas, crashing our fragile bubble like a rogue wave. He arrived at O'Hare with a duffel stuffed with in-and-out contraband and stories of Hollywood hustles, his energy electric, oblivious. John, Eli, my boys. He bear-hugged us both in the terminal, the scent of airplane pretzels and ambition clinging to him. The apartment swelled with his presence. Pizza boxes piling up, Xbox controllers in perpetual motion, late-night rants about casting couch creeps and dream-chasing doubts. Jonathan played the big brother card flawless, ribs and bad puns flowing. But I caught the undercurrents. Hunter's sidelong glances, the way he'd pull me aside in the bathroom, whispering, "You good?" "John's not overwhelming you, is he?" It stung, that implication, Jonathan as the steady oak, me the vine clinging too tight. But Hunter meant well, his protectiveness a mirror of his brother's. Forged in the same fractured home after their mom's MS diagnosis scattered the family like ash. We three made a odd trinity. Hunter the spark, Jonathan the hearth, me the shadow finding light. Christmas Eve we strung lights on the fire escape, icicles dangling like frozen tears, then crammed onto the couch for It's a Wonderful Life, Jonathan's arm around my shoulders, Hunter none the wiser, crunching gingerbread from a tin shaped like George's Bailey's house. New Year's brought the first real test. Jonathan's crew landed a big Reno job downtown. A high-rise gut job that meant 12-hour days and him stumbling home at midnight, reeking of plaster dust and exhaustion. I'd wait up, microwaving leftovers, but the distance grew, measured in missed texts and half-asleep goodnights. One night, after a blizzard shut the city down, he didn't make it back at all, bunking at a buddy's to avoid the drifts. I paced the empty apartment, the silence amplifying every creak, ghosts of old fears whispering temporary, always temporary. When he finally dragged in at dawn, cheeks ruddy from cold, I unloaded. "I thought you bailed, like everyone else." He froze in the doorway, snow melting into puddles, then crossed the room in 2 strides, cupping my face. "Never, Eli. This us, it's the real job, the one that matters." Spring thawed the ice, greening the parks and greening our edges too. I landed steady work at a design firm in the Loop, churning logos for startups that dreamed bigger than their budgets. And Jonathan surprised me with a drafting table scavenged from an estate sale, its surface scarred like a roadmap of possibilities. We painted the bedroom walls a soft sage, his hands steady on the roller, mine smudged with trim, laughter echoing as drips splattered our jeans. Intimacy deepened in increments. A shared shower after a muddy hike in Starved Rock, water sluicing clean but touches lingering. Mornings where I'd wake to him tracing my spine, murmurs of mine against my skin. But harmonies of fragile chord, and discord struck with Hunter's return call in April. "Eli, heads up. I'm moving back. Got a gig at a indie studio. Crashing with you guys." Panic flickered, not from space but secrets. Our quiet life a house of cards against his whirlwind. Jonathan took it in stride. "Hell yeah. Short stuff. Room's yours." But I saw the strain, the way his shoulders tensed like guy wires. Hunter arrived in May, duffel and dreams in tow, the apartment alive with his chaos. Scripts strewn like confetti, takeout debates over Tarantino versus Scorsese till 3 a.m. He clocked the shift quick. Jonathan's hand on my knee during movie night, the synced rhythms of our mornings, and cornered me one dawn over bodega coffee. "You're happy. That's dope. But John, he's my brother. If you hurt him..." The warning hung, laced with love, and I swore I wouldn't, even as guilt gnawed. Was I the risk he'd sworn off, or the redemption he'd earned? Summer hummed in, sticky and electric. The lake calling us to weekends at Oak Street Beach. Jonathan slathering SPF on my back with deliberate strokes. Hunter burying us in sandcastles that mocked our buried tensions. One sweltering July 4th, fireworks bursting over Navy Pier like false stars. Hunter pulled Jonathan aside during the chaos. Their heads bent close, words lost to the booms. I watched from afar, heart in my throat, piecing fragments. Deserve this. Don't fuck it up. When they rejoined, arms slung brotherly, Jonathan's eyes met mine with a fierceness that steadied the spin. All good, he mouthed, and I believed him. Fireworks painting us in fleeting glory. But August brought the storm's eye. Jonathan's crew hit a snag. Structural beams rotten as old grudges. Delays stacking like dominoes. Tempers flaring on sight. He came home hollowed, snapping at small things. A misplaced wrench, my forgotten laundry. Sorry, he'd mutter, collapsing onto the couch. But the apologies piled, eroding the trust we'd mortared so carefully. I withdrew too, burying in deadlines, the design firm's push for billable hours a convenient shield. Hunter played buffer, dragging us to Wrigley for a night game, the crack of bats a temporary truce. But the locker room talk lingered. You two fighting? Looks like my last breakup. The breaking point came mid-month, a humid night where the AC wheezed defeat. Jonathan got a call from the bar old boss needing a fill-in, tips fat for the weekend rush. I'll be late, he said, kissing my temple, but hours stretched, texts sparse. Midnight found me scrolling Marco's Instagram. Public now, wedding pics glowing with that Brooklyn polish, and doubt flooded back, tidal and treacherous. When Jonathan stumbled in at 2, smelling of spilled IPA and stranger's cologne, a spilled drink, he'd swear, I ignited. Who is it this time? The chaos you miss. The accusation flew, ugly and unfounded, and his face crumpled, betrayal mirroring mine. Eli, what the fuck? It's work. Trust goes both ways. We shouted till hoarse, Hunter pounding on his door from the couch. Guys, chill. But the damage rooted deep, a chasm widening with every hurled you don't get it. He slept on the fire escape that night, stars mocking our mess, and I curled fetal in bed, tears soaking the pillow that still smelled of him. Dawn brought fragile peace. Coffee black as regret, his hand extended across the table. We're better than this, he said, voice raw, and I took it, fingers lacing. But the scar tissue formed, tender and untested. Fall returned sharper, leaves skittering like warnings across sidewalks, and with it the slow mend, or so I thought. Jonathan and I navigated the minefield with care. Date nights at quiet bistros in Andersonville, where candlelight softened edges and wine loosened tongues without liquid courage. We'd talk repairs, not just us, but the apartment. Patching the hallway drywall gouged from a misplaced hammer swing, metaphor for our own fractures. Hunter, bless his oblivious heart, threw himself into additions, landing bit parts in web series that paid in exposure and ramen. His enthusiasm a bomb that kept the peace. But beneath the surface, currents pulled. My designs caught an agent's eye, a nonprofit gig for a youth shelter, logos evoking home without the haunt, and suddenly I had portfolio cred, whispers of freelance abroad. London? Berlin? Colleagues teased over craft brews at happy hour, the allure of escape tugging like an old itch. Jonathan swelled with pride, framing my first check on the fridge like a trophy. But I caught his glances, the flicker of not again when I scrolled expat forums late at night. He had his own ghost stirring. The record shop dream resurfaced, spurred by a pop-up vinyl fair in Pilsen, where he scored a mint-condition Born to run for peanuts. Could flip these, he mused, stacks teetering on the coffee table, Hunter geeking over rarities. Nights blurred into inventory sessions, Jonathan's eyes alight with that rare spark. But funding loomed like a specter. Bank loans sharking interest, his credit nicked from Marco's shared debts. We could crowdfund, I suggested, sketching campaign graphics on my tablet. Us against the world. He kissed me fierce then, murmuring we like a vow, and for a moment, the future gleamed uncracked. Thanksgiving tested the seams. Hunter insisted on hosting, My turn to play adult, transforming the apartment into a Norman Rockwell fever dream. Turkey brining in the tub, cornbread stuffing bubbling. A playlist of Motown crooners setting the mood. Relatives trickled in. Aunt Clara with her Jell-O salad and passive digs about city boys gone soft. Cousin Mia fresh from college with progressive zingers that had Jonathan chuckling into his napkin. I played the boyfriend role seamless. Passing gravy, fielding so, Eli, what do you do? With practiced charm. But under the table, Jonathan's knee pressed mine. Anchor in the familial tide. Dad's absence echoed loudest. A void I filled with extra pie. But Jonathan's family had its own hollows. Mom's empty chair, her MS claiming her 5 years back. The divorce that splintered Dad into Florida golf courses. Toast skirted the pain. To new chapters. Hunter raised his glass, eyes glassy. And we clinked, silverware chiming like fragile bells. Later, washing dishes side by side. Suds foaming, Jonathan leaned in. You're my chapter, Eli. Don't forget. I dried a plate, throat tight, whispering back. Ditto. December deepened the chill, holidays layering lights on the wounds. We strung the tree, a Charlie Brown special from a corner lot, ornaments scavenged from thrift bins, and Hunter filmed a cringy vlog, Wicker Park winters with the brothers. Snow fell fat and forgiving, blanketing the city in hush, and we three built a fort in the living room. Blankets draped over chairs, cocoa steaming as we binge-watched the Wire marathons. Intimacy wove tighter. Jonathan and I stealing moments in the kitchen. His hands spanning my waist, kisses tasting of peppermint and promise, while Hunter snored obliviously on the couch. New Year's Eve dawned brittle, the high from midnight countdowns destined to crash. Jonathan's crowdfunding page launched to fanfare. Backers trickling in from bar regulars, construction pals, even Hunter's actor network. But pledges stalled, the goal mocking from the dashboard. Pressure mounted, his shifts doubling. Homecomings marked by silence heavier than the snowdrifts. I'd wait with takeout, words ready, but he'd wave them off, just tired, babe. The endearment, once sweet, soured on my tongue, doubt's old friend slinking back. The betrayal brewed slow, fermented in omissions. I found the email's first draft folder in his laptop, left open during a rare nap. Queries to labels in Austin, Nashville, pitches for a fresh start solo venture. No mention of us, the shop, the life we'd sketched. Heart hammering, I scrolled deeper. A thread with his old crew boss. Doc could use a foreman down south, good pay, clean slate. South. Away from Chicago's grind. From me. Panic clawed. Was this Marco's echo? The pull of unanchored horizons? Confrontation brewed over a mundane Monday dinner. Lo mein cooling on plates as I slid the laptop across the table. Going somewhere? My voice was even, but inside, storm raged. He blinked, confusion creasing his brow, then horror dawning as he scanned the screen. Eli, no, these are contingencies. If the fund flops, I gotta provide. Provide. The word stung paternal, diminishing us to ledger lines. For who? Hunter? Me? Or just you? Chasing the next fix. Accusations flew, laced with Riley's ghost, Dad's abandonments, and he fired back. You think this is easy? Balancing dreams with not fucking up what we have? You're talking Berlin like it's nothing. Hunter burst in mid-shout, keychain jingling like alarm bells, takeout bags swinging. Whoa! Domestic disturbance much? He dropped the bags, playing ref, but his eyes darted, worry for John, wariness for me. We simmered to truce, apologies parceled like leftovers, but the rift yawned, cold air seeping through. That night, Jonathan reached for me in bed, but I turned away, the space between us vast as the lake in winter. January's grip tightened, blizzards burying the city, mirroring the freeze between us. I threw into work, mock-ups for international clients that whispered go, while Jonathan pounded pavement for side gigs, the shop dream icing over. Hunter mediated with forced cheer, game nights, brewery crawls, but his texts to me piled. Give him space. John bottles till he bursts. Bursts, the word haunted, evoking Dad's rages, and I wondered if safety was illusion, a couch lent but never owned. Valentine's loomed absurd, a hallmark trap in our minefield. Jonathan tried. Roses wilting on the counter. A playlist of our songs burned to CD like analog love letter. But I met it with frost, dinner untouched. I can't do half measures, I said, pushing back from the table, the scrape loud as fracture. He nodded, defeated, and we slept back to back, the bed a DMZ. The climax crested in February's maw, a polar vortex pinning us indoors. Power flickered during a nor'easter, candles guttering as we huddled under quilts. Hunter out at an audition callback. Silence stretched, then Jonathan broke it. I emailed the Austin job. Interview next week. The confession landed like ice cracking, and I bolted upright, shadows dancing grotesque on walls. So that's it? Pack the truck. Wave by. Hysteria edged my voice, and he grabbed my arms. Grounding. No scout mission. For us, better pay means the shop here, stability. But doubt sneered. Contingencies always the escape hatch. Words escalated. Old wounds ripped fresh. My fears of abandonment, his of stagnation. You think I'm Marco? Chasing glitter? He roared, hurt flaying him raw. I'm fighting for this. For you. Tears tracked his face, and mine joined, the dam bursting. Hunter's key turned in the lock then, snow-whipped and oblivious, but the die was cast. I packed a bag that night, crashing at a coworker's, the apartment's echo chasing me downstairs. Weeks blurred in limbo. Texts polite as frostbite, Hunter ping-ponging please. Jonathan aced the interview, but canceled the offer, emailing not without you. I hold in studios, designs bleeding emotion. Shelter logos now fortresses, unbreachable. Spring teased green, but my heart stayed iced, until one drizzly afternoon. Hunter dragged me back. Fix it or lose it, dumbass. The reconciliation unfolded not in grand gestures but grit. A Chicago spring muddied with potholes and persistence. I showed up at the apartment unannounced, backpack slung like armor. Rain sheeting off the awning as Jonathan opened the door. Eyes shadowed, flannel rumpled, but hope flickering like the first crocus. Can I? I started, and he stepped aside, no questions, the hallway swallowing us whole. Hunter, ever the wingman, vanished to rehearse lines at a coffee shop, leaving the space for excavation. We sat on the fire escape, city stirring below. L trains rumbling judgment, vendors hawking tamales from carts, and peeled back layers. I panicked, Jonathan admitted, knees bumping mine, the metal grate cold under us. The shop's my white whale, but losing you? That's the real sinker. I confessed the Berlin buzz, the siren call of reinvention masking my terror of roots. You're my root, John. Steady scares me, 'cause I've never had it. Laughter bubbled then, wry and releasing, as we mapped a hybrid. Shop here, my designs funding the leap. No solos in the symphony. Summer rebuilt us brick by brick. The crowdfunding surged, Hunter's vlog going semi-viral. Backers charmed by two dreamers and their scrappy kid brother. And Jonathan signed the lease on a hole-in-the-wall spot in Ukrainian village. Shelves raw pine waiting for vinyl soles. I freelanced remote for Euro clients, laptop perched on the new drafting table, while evenings blurred into paint-splattered chaos. Him hanging neon signs, me mocking up window decals of turntables twined with ivy. Intimacy reignited slow burn. Hands linking over blueprints, kisses deepening in sawdust haze, bodies aligning under sheets with reverence. No rush to the horizon. Hunter thrived in the orbit, booking a commercial that paid actual rent, his pride swelling as he stocked the shop's staff picks wall with indie mixtapes. Family wove tighter. Aunt Clara's pierogies at the grand opening. Mia DJing a soft launch with queer anthems from the 90s. Katie Lang crooning over speakers. Patrons milling with craft beers and stories. The night hummed electric, Jonathan's arm around my waist as he cut the ribbon. A thrift store bow tie askew, and whispered, "This is it, Eli, us." But life, that stubborn bastard, doesn't bow to montages. Fall whispered warnings with equinox winds, and the first omen arrived in October. A letter from my lawyer, Dad's no contact violated. A court date looming like thunderhead. He wants reconciliation, The email read, laced with legalese, but I knew better. The pull of guilt, the cycle's claw. Jonathan paced the shop after hours, records silent witnesses, while Hunter brewed tea strong as resolve. You don't owe him shit, he growled, but doubt gnawed. Blood's bond, frayed but fibrous. The hearing was a sterile purgatory in Cook County. Fluorescent hum underscoring Dad's slumped figure, grayer, gaunter, eyes pleading through lawyer proxies. Mom sat beside him, handkerchief twisted, her "I'm sorry" a whisper across the aisle that cracked my armor. Testimonies droned. My affidavit, clinical as scars. His remorse, scripted and suspect. Jonathan waited outside, thumbing a dog-eared Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance for distraction. And when I emerged, order extended, no reconciliation mandated. He enveloped me, heartbeat sinking to mine. Proud of you, he murmured into my hair. The courthouse steps a stage for quiet triumph. Winter wrapped us warmer that year. The shop, compass grooves, nod to his tattoo, drawing a niche crowd. Vinyl heads nursing pour-overs, open mics where Hunter emceed poetry slams laced with queer fire. Holidays glowed authentic, tree trimmed with shop merch tags, gifts handmade, Jonathan's leather wallet etched with a tiny skyline, mine a custom turntable mat inked with our initials entwined. But under the cheer, fishers hinted. Sales dipping with holiday rushes elsewhere. My inbox flooding with full-time offers from agencies hungry for my Midwest grit. The real quake hit in January. A double blow. Dad's heart attack, relayed by a cousin's frantic call. He's asking for you, Eli. End it right. And Jonathan's confession over midnight shift. A backer pulling out. The lone shark circling. Foreclosure whispers on the lease. I can fix it, he said, voice frayed. But I saw the map on his desk. Route south, contingencies reborn. Trust teetered. My own pulls southward in job offers clashing like cymbals. Climax crested in February's false thaw. Rain lashing windows as I drove to Indiana alone. Jonathan's be safe text a talisman. The hospital room reeked of antiseptic and regret. Dad tubed and frail. Mom's hand in mine, a bridge I crossed trembling. Son, he rasped, eyes wet. I was wrong. Scared. Love you. The words I'd craved, poison now, too late, too little. I forgave in whispers. Not for him but me. Then fled. Tires eating miles back to Chicago. Heart a war drum. Home. Our home, waited dark. Jonathan's note on the fridge. At the bar. Call if you need. But the bar was shuttered early. And panic propelled me to the shop, where lights burned low. There he was, packing boxes, vinyl crates labeled Ship South, a U-Haul keychain glinting on the counter. Betrayal surged, hot and volcanic. You're leaving? Now? He spun, face ashen, boxes tumbling. Eli, no, it's inventory shuffle. Lone guys breathing down, but lies crumbled under my glare, the map unfurling like indictment. Contingencies again. I'm the risk you can't afford. Shouts echoed off bare shelves. Hunter bursting in from the back office. What the hell? As truths detonated. His fear of failure dragging us under. My forgiveness unlocking old chains. I can't drown us both, Jonathan pleaded, tears carving tracks. But I backed away, the door's bell tinkling like dirge. Then don't. But choose. The night fractured us. Hunter shuttling me to a hotel, his silence heavier than sobs. Days blurred in stasis. Shop half-shuttered. My designs half-finished. Calls unanswered. Climax peaked in a storm-swept dawn. Jonathan at my door. Drenched. Defeated. A manila envelope clutched. Papers. Shop's mine free and clear. Begged a deferral, sold the bike. No more escapes. Inside. Lease extension, my name co-signed. Partners. For real. I pulled him in. Rain pooling. Bodies colliding in relief's raw embrace. No more halves. I gasped, and he nodded, forehead to mine. Whole. Always. Spring unfurled forgiving. Petals scattering like confetti on the shop stoop. And we emerged scarred but stitched. Stronger in the welds. Jonathan and I commingled dreams. Compass designs. A hybrid corner. Vinyl spins beside my sketch pads, clients browsing records while commissioning logos, the air humming with possibility. Hunter emceed the relaunch, mic in hand, toasting to risks that stick, his grin masking the mediator's toll. But he'd found his lane, a recurring role in a queer web series that let him infuse lines with lived fire. Life layered depth, not drama. Mornings tangled in sunlight slant sheets, coffee brewed dual strength. Evenings closing shop to live sets, Jonathan's playlist weaving Springsteen anthems with rising indie croons. Intimacy bloomed unhurried, bodies schooled in each other's cadences. Touches mapping not just skin but souls. Whispers of futures sketched in margins. No grand proposals, just quiet pacts. A joint bank for the shop, my passport tucked beside his, travels penciled as us. Challenges came gentle, honing rather than hacking. Dad's recovery brought tentative cards. Proud of your art, son. A bridge rebuilt plank by plank. Mom's visits to the shop, tentative teas over pierogies from the deli next door. Jonathan's crew teased his city slicker glow, ribbing over beers at the site, but he wore the ring I'd slipped on his chain. Simple silver, engraved harbor, like talisman. Hunter dated a sound tech named Alex, sparks genuine. His joy infectious as he dragged us to double dates at Ticarius, laughter echoing off graffitied walls. Summer sang full-throated, lake days blending into porch beers, the city a lover's sprawl. We road-tripped the Great River Road, Jonathan's old truck rattling harmonies to Dylan tapes, stopping at bluffs where eagles wheeled, hands linked over tailgate picnics of cheese curds and cherry wine. This, he said once, Mississippi churning below, is the compass I needed. I leaned into him, wind tousling, knowing safety wasn't absence of storm but anchor in its eye. Fall gilded edges, harvest fairs calling us back to roots. Jonathan teaching me to shuck corn at a stand, butter-slick fingers brushing promises. The shop thrived modest. A podcast collab with local DJs, my murals on the exterior drawing foot traffic, queer youth lingering after school for the safe space vibe we'd unspokenly curated. Holidays warmed authentic. Thanksgiving with Mia's vegan twist on turkey, Aunt Clara's toast slurring sentimental. Christmas vinyl exchange, Hunter gifting a signed Bowie bootleg that had Jonathan tearing up over eggnog. Winter whispered endurance, snow sculpting fortitude. A nor'easter knocked power, but we hunkered with board games and battery lanterns. Hunter's stories spinning yarns till dawn. Spring circled back, anniversaries marked quiet. 1 year since the couch, a tattoo for me. A tiny compass on my wrist, Rose Point north to his heart. We volunteered at the youth shelter. My logo's now their banner, Jonathan mentoring kids on trades. Eyes meeting across craft tables in shared purpose. Years folded like well-worn records, grooves deepening. Hunter's series greenlit for TV, him jetting coasts but homing holidays. The shop expanded to online drops, my designs syndicating to apps. Challenges ebbed, loan paid, Dad's visits thawing to ball games. But joys amplified. Adoptions unspoken. A golden retriever named Scout claiming the couch's throne. No biopic bows, just the humanistic hum. Love as verb, messy and mending. Safety not given but grown. One dusk, fire escape perch, city symphony below. Jonathan's arm heavy draped. I traced his tattoo. Craved this? I murmured, and he tilted, kiss soft as snowfall. Found it, he replied, green eyes steady as ever. The skyline twinkled ascent. A fractured boy and his harbor. Hole in the weave. Proof that after the rain, roots hold, and homes, once lent, become legacies. In the end, it wasn't fairy tale flawless but American true. Grit glued, grace earned. A story of two souls docking in storm-tossed seas. Sails furled not in surrender but serenity. And in that quiet harbor we stayed. Loving loud, living deep. The safety craved not just given, but guarded, forever.